The best part of waking up. Hello and welcome to Unsafe Space. I'm your host, Keri Smith, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Carter Laren. Hello, Carter.
Hey, Keri, how you doing?
Good morning. I've called you here today on a Saturday I wanted to just show people one example of, because we're hearing in the media now, there's no critical race theory in pre-K. There's no critical race theory in K through 12. There's no social justice being taught, in elementary schools, which is a lie. And anyone who's been covering this for the past few years knows it's a lie. Anybody who's got kids in school who are coming home with coursework knows it's a lie. We're a pretty small show. We've been contacted by countless parents who are like, how do we push back against this?
Yeah, and by the way, can you really quickly clarify for people who are confused by terminology? Social justice, critical race theory, anti-racism, they're all euphemisms for the same
They're all the same.
pseudo-Marxist racist ideology. They're all the same thing.
One helpful way of thinking about it, I think of social justice as the umbrella, and social justice ideology, which is my old ideology, and underneath it, there's all these different ways that they push it, that it manifests. So there's critical race theory, there's intersectionality, there's third wave feminism, there's queer theory, anti-racism. It's all the same bag of crap.
Right. Right. Yeah, and the critical race theory stuff is like the philosophic underpinnings, and then they don't literally teach the philosophy to elementary students. They teach the conclusions of the philosophy to elementary students, which is be racist.
They're applying it. So the way you can think about all of it, if you are new to this, social justice ideology, all of these different parts of it, critical race theory, third wave feminism, intersectionality, anti-racism was what Ibram X. Kendi calls it, all of it. All of it teaches us that the best way to operate in the world is as if the world is a competition for power among identity groups. And it teaches us that the world should be divided up into oppressor and the oppressed in all of these different categories of identity. And that the way that we make a more equal world, they don't care about equality, actually, they care about equity. The way that we make a more equitable world is by judging and treating people differently based on what identity groups they're in. So all of this social justice stuff, everything that's under the umbrella, tells us that we need to judge and treat people differently on the basis of race. That's racism. It tells us we need to judge and treat people differently on the basis of sex. That's sexism. All of this stuff is under that umbrella.
I just wanted to thank you. I just wanted to clarify for people, because you were using social justice kind of interchangeably with CRT, and I wanted to so people understand.
Oh yeah, I do that because it's part of it. CRT is part of it. So this is something that, there have been countless people who've been documenting this in elementary schools, in high schools for the past couple of years. Christopher Rufo has done a good job of that. I think he alone has documented over 12 different school districts that are using it, that are teaching CRT principles. This is something that the Mythinformed guys found. The Mythinformed guys are the guys who put on, it's Mythicist Milwaukee. They're the guys who put on the Better Discourse Conference. And I don't know if you've been following their feed, but the past 6 months or so, they've just really been doing a lot of digging and churning out a lot of material. They broke the Pizza Hut stuff, Pizza Hut, helping funding social justice education in K through 12. Okay. Gross. I'm sure
just like their pizza.
Yeah.
Or their salad bar. Their salad bar is very gross. I remember that from my childhood.
There's got to be a parody video in there somewhere about Pizza Hut and like a pizza pie and how they view the world, like teaching social justice with pizza and salad.
Yes.
Because
the
one
cheese
of the things
is oppressive. Whatever.
Yeah. One of the things the social justice people teach is that they say, okay, see, liberalism of the past, as you know it, like actual liberalism, we used to talk about a diverse country like the United States being a melting pot, where you bring in people with different beliefs and backgrounds and religions, and it's sort of a melting pot where people pick up different things from different cultures, cultural appreciation, right? Social justice is all about keeping us divided. It's all about divisions. You know, what race are you? What sex are you? Then you're like this, and you're like that. And it's all about keeping us divided. And so they will actually say this, that we shouldn't view the world, the United States, as a melting pot. We should view it like a salad bowl where everything is separate and distinct. So your tomatoes are over here and your cheese is over here. And you're like, that's just
like the Pizza Hut salad bar that no one wants to eat at. That's
exactly
how we should view America. It's a bunch of disparate, disgusting fruits. And
iceberg lettuce and little cubed ham.
Most of which has been contaminated by little kids in their snot-nosed hands. All right.
Okay, let's get into this though. So we just wanted to show, this is just one of many school districts in the United States that is teaching social justice, indoctrinating children with social justice. This is Oak Park Elementary School District 97 in Oak Park, Illinois. And they just put out a video in May. Okay, now this is the description of the video. You can find this on their YouTube channel. It's about 40 minutes long. And it's called District 97, D97 Parent University, K through 5, Social Justice Lessons, kindergarten through 5-year-old social justice lessons. Okay.
It's really important for 5-year-olds to understand how to treat their 5-year-old friends, their other 5-year-old friends, because otherwise they might treat them based on the content of their character.
Yeah, we have to make sure social justice people, they want to make sure they get your kids at this age. This is actually the prime age for indoctrination. They want to get a kid before they hit the age of, what was that old?
I think it's 6. I think it was the Jesuits used to say, I think if they had a child for the first 6 years, but there's been many variations. Other people have said it as well. Mm-hmm. Stalin also famously said something similar to that. So, yeah, it's known.
Yeah.
It's known. You
give me your child till the age of 5, and I'll have them for life. That kind of idea. So what they want to do is instill in your child at an early age that they should judge and treat people differently on the basis of what race they are and on the basis of what sex they are. So here's the description for this video. It says, District 97 hosted virtual parent university session on May 13th, 2021, focusing on the elementary school social justice lessons from Learning for Justice, formerly known as Teaching Tolerance. We're going to get into what that is in a second. The session, which was called K through 5, Social Justice Lessons, Building a Foundation for Inclusive and Anti-Racist Work in District 97, covered the social justice lessons that are building the foundation for inclusive and anti-racist work in District 97 elementary schools. That was kind of funny. The title, and then they said it was about, and then they just gave the title again.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, if you're not familiar with a lot of this stuff, right, some of these words are key words that you see repeated that are used as they are they don't mean what they might feel like they ostensibly mean. Like the word social isn't bad, and the word justice isn't bad, and the word anti-racist doesn't sound bad, and the word inclusive sounds fine. Right. But all this language, it's like it's like in 1984 when they come up with terminology that has a specific meaning. Like it doesn't actually mean the dictionary definition. They're relating it to their whole ideology. That's how anyone who writes a sentence like this, they're not talking about actual justice. They're not talking about actual inclusivity, and they're not talking about actually ending racism. They're talking about the opposite. These are keywords that signal their ideology.
Right. If you look up, even if you were to go to Wikipedia and look up anti-racism, you'll see in their definition, they talk about groups. They talk about systemic and institutionalized, because what they mean is in order to be so-called anti-racist, Ibram X. Kendi he said it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist. Okay, well, what's anti-racism? Oh, anti-racism means judging and treating people differently based on what groups they're in, what racial groups they're in. Well, that sounds a lot like racism, doesn't it? It's like you've just given it a new name. Anyway, So this video is put out by, what they said in the description, put out by an organization called Learning for Justice, formerly known as Teaching Tolerance. So if you do some digging into what this group is, and you go to their page or their website, they tell you.
We can pull it up. Want me to pull it up? Let's see. Sorry, Beverly's not here. I'm the old guy's doing all the screen sharing by himself. All right.
Learningforjustice.org. And it tells you Learning for Justice is a project of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is dedicated to fighting hate and bigotry and to seeking justice for the most vulnerable members of our society. Learning for Justice partners with a number of outstanding organizations to offer diverse content through the Perspectives Text Library. If you go to their description on their YouTube channel, Learning for Justice has a YouTube channel. And under their description, it says, Learning for Justice. Do we have this one? I'll wait for you.
Yeah, let me find it. Do you know what number it was that you sent me? Because I can't see them very easily.
I think it was the last one.
The last one. This one. Let's try this one. Boom.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So Learning for Justice has a YouTube channel. If you go to their YouTube channel, you can see their description there as well. And this is pretty interesting. Learning for Justice description. Learning for Justice seeks to uphold the mission of the Southern Poverty Law Center to be a catalyst for racial justice in the South and beyond, working in partnership with communities to dismantle white supremacy, strengthen intersectional, there's that word, movements, and advance the human rights of all people. I'm sure. If you are interested,
they don't mean individual rights, by the way. That's it's amazing how the word human rights is used to be the opposite of individual rights. It's fascinating to me linguistically. But
they do pull in a lot of well-intentioned people like myself. I got pulled into this for a long time because you read this and you're like, oh, human rights. Yeah, cool.
Sure, yeah. And dismantling white supremacy. I mean, if there's any left, I guess it should be dismantled.
Yeah, exactly.
Working in partnership with communities, that sounds good. Catalyst for racial justice. I mean, that sounds fine. I mean, if you just ostensibly, right?
So look at the contact there. If you want to get in touch with anybody at this organization, Learning for Justice, look at who you contact. It's a Southern Poverty Law Center email address.
Learning for Justice editor, LFJ editor at SPLC Center.
The SPLC Center. They are part of the Southern Poverty Law Center. So the Southern Poverty Law Center is funding and putting out this social justice indoctrination. This one specifically catering to kindergarten through fifth grade. And I don't know. I'm sort of left speechless when that their tactic. I shouldn't be surprised, but when people started to gain a foothold on pushing back against this ideology, that their response, their defense, instead of defending the ideology and defending the ideology being in kindergarten and being in elementary school, their defense was to say, "It's not there. Are you going to believe like me or your lying eyes?" Like,
yes, exactly. Actually, so let's be clear. Their defense first was critical race theory is a legal theory. That's not anywhere. And then their defense was, and anyway, if it is somewhere, it's necessary, or else you can't teach Frederick Douglass. It's like, what are you talking about? Like what are you talking about? It's not there, and if it isn't there, you can't teach Frederick Douglass. So we have to.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. You should absolutely teach Frederick Douglass, because Frederick Douglass, what he wrote about in, especially his 4th of July essay, for example, is the exact opposite of what social justice pushes. It's the exact opposite. He believed in holding America to its better standards, like holding America to the principles that were set forth in our founding documents, because he believed in the importance of those documents. What did he call it? An anchor weight?
I don't know.
That's
a good word. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if he was raised today, he would have turned out differently. But if you take 35 or 40-year-old Frederick Douglass from back in the 19th century and you plop them down in today's culture, I don't think he would want to have a beer with Ibram X. Kendi. I think he would be against all of this stuff.
They would be opposed.
Right.
Ibram X. Kendi says, this is the guy who, now he's interesting because since some of the pushback has been effective, all of these different high priests and priestesses of the social justice movement have been going on the social justice friendly legacy media shows like Joy Reid, and they've been trying to say that what they put forward isn't critical race theory, because people like Christopher Rufo, James Lindsay have done a good job of isolating that part of social justice and talking about CRT. So now they're saying, well, this isn't CRT. It's all social justice, though. It's all under the umbrella of social justice. And Ibram X. Kendi, who has been saying, well, I call it anti-racism. It's like not the same thing as CRT, guys. It's the same conclusions.
It's totally different.
It's totally different. Anyway, I just want to read you one of his.
I call it potato, not potato. It's a completely different vegetable. Sorry.
Pajamas. Okay. Here's one of his quotes. This is Ibram X. Kendi. Quote, "The only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination."
I don't think he understands what the word remedy means. But
no. It's not a remedy. You don't solve racism with racism. You don't cure collectivism with collectivism. You don't do that. You don't fix discrimination with discrimination.
You know, there was an interesting remedy that was working for a while. It was called individualism. It seems to work.
That sounds extreme. Tell me more about this individualism.
No, I can't. Zuckerberg will censor me if I say anything.
Does it involve treating people as individuals?
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And then I just wanted to, this is a great little meme that there's a Twitter account that goes by ACS against CRT. And I believe he created this meme. And so he has that Ibram X. Kendi quote, which I've heard before. It's from his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, and AKA How to Be a Racist. And he juxtaposed it with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. And that quote is one that people probably are familiar with. It says, "Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." And then you got Ibram X. Kendi, like, no, let's drive out discrimination with discrimination, guys. What's wrong with that?
And the thing that's really bothersome to me about it is no one's arguing that justice justice is something that's only relevant as a concept for individuals because it applies to action. It applies to justice. Justice applies to agency and action. So only individuals have agency. There is no collective agency. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as the will of the white people or the will of the black people throughout history. Like, that's not a thing. Even if you have most of the people voting for something, it's still only most of the people. There's no such thing as collective will. That's just statistics where people like 50% and they call that a threshold and they call that the collective will. But fundamentally, there's only individual actions and individual agency, and justice only applies to individuals. So if someone did do something bad to you, it's completely appropriate to ask for and demand justice and compensation for what was done to you individually by another individual. But that concept is totally perverted and corrupted when you say this group of people has been historically treated differently by this group of people, and instead of correcting that treatment, which is start treating people like individuals, like instead of recognizing this is bad and we need to stop it, we're asking for, quote, justice between groups over time. That's not a concept. That's an invalid philosophical concept and actually corrupts justice, because the only way you can do it is by treating people, individuals, unjustly today.
Right. You stop treating people based on what treating people differently based on what race they are. That's what ends treating people differently based on what race they are, is you you stop doing it. Okay, so we should watch just a little clip. Let's watch a little clip of this video that was prepared to show the parents at Oak Park Elementary School District 97 in Oak Park, Illinois, to show the parents of children who are in kindergarten through 5th grade what their kids are learning about social justice.
All right, let's take a look. See if the boomer gets this working. All right, there's the video. And here we go.
This year, next slide, please. We really went with the identity and diversity standards first. So all of the standards are based on some work from Louise Derman Sparks. And the standards are pretty much the common social justice standards used in a bunch of different resources. But we went in, as we started to develop a resource that teachers could take into their classroom, we got a lot of feedback. And after talking to the Diversity Council, they really strongly encouraged the teachers this year to focus on identity and diversity first. Because much like reading and writing and math, social justice standards have foundation work for our students.
That they do. She's right. They have foundation work.
With the students. So we really have to understand ourselves first and our own identities. And that's the foundation of understanding how we interact with the world, with other people. It's how we learn about diversity. And then
can you pause it for a second?
Yeah, I was going to say, can we pause on the word diversity for a second?
In our world.
Yeah, so go ahead.
She says we have to learn about our identity first because that's our foundation of understanding how we interact in the world. No, it's not. What they're doing. Do you understand what she means by that? Anybody? Like she means we have.
She means which group you belong to.
Yes, we have to look at how. Okay, I am a white woman, so therefore, being white and being a woman informs how I interact in the world. It's the primary means by which they tell us this is the primary means by which we understand how we behave in the world. It's not. My identity, at the end of the day, there are things much more important to my identity than my race or my sex. Those things inform how I operate in the world. Sure. Being short informs how I operate in the world, you know, the kind of household I grew up in, my childhood.
Can I ask you, sorry, this is maybe a,
yeah.
I'll call it a dumb question. maybe it's a dumb question. Maybe it's not. I use this language as well. This informs that. But if I stop and step back, what the hell does that mean? What does informs mean? Mm. Does my maleness inform anything? Like, I guess it's an attribute of mine. I don't view attributes as informing me. It's a weird word choice, and I'm not sure if there's a reason behind that weird word choice. It's almost like I need to be educated about my own attributes because they should force me to be a different way than I actually just want to be. I just am naturally. Like, oh, you're blah, like I'm short. Does that inform my experience?
Yeah.
No. Does it affect my experience? Sure. I have more legroom on airplanes, and I can't play basketball. Fine. It affects my experience. It doesn't inform it.
That's a great point. It's, you know, they do a lot with language, as you know. They're very concerned with controlling language. They try,
and they're good at it, which is why I'm asking. Maybe there's a reason. Yeah.
Maybe there's a reason they've gotten us all to say, because I use that word now without even thinking about it. When you stop to ask me that question, yes, a more accurate term would be affects. Being a woman affects how I operate in the world. Being white affects how I operate. Being short, being, raised in a certain kind of household, all of these things affect how you operate in the world. What part of the country you're in.
What year it is.
Whether you're healthy or not. Whether you're disabled or not. But what they want to tell you is that all of these immutable identity characteristics, and some of them which are not immutable, but they want you to think they are, like being like your weight or your mental health.
Oh, right.
They want you to think that that's fixed, but it's not. They want to say that all of these immutable identity characteristics are the primary means by which you should view your identity, and that these are the things that affect how you operate, and that there's nothing uniquely individual about each person. You are just a collection of what groups are you in, what racial, sexual group, sexuality.
They wouldn't actually admit that. I don't think they would say, of course you're unique. You're these grouped intersections. But that's what makes you unique is the extent of your membership in a bunch of different groups, not just who you are fundamentally. I'm wondering if the word informed. I'm spitballing here because I just thought of this while you were talking. This wasn't prepped, right? I'm wondering if the word informed, if you think about it, the implication is that if you don't agree with them, that your group membership in these groups matters, then you're actually uninformed. There's like some ignorance. Like the flip side is ignorance. If like being a woman informs who you are, that means you should behave. You have new information. You should actually behave a certain way. Maybe there's an element of should to the word informed. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Because they're sort of telling you, they're bestowing upon you this secret knowledge, right? Much like a cult. You're getting this secret knowledge, and this knowledge tells you that your whiteness operates. That's another interesting word they use, operates.
Operates.
Your whiteness operates.
Volition to the whiteness.
Yeah.
Right. The whiteness has agency. It's operating.
It is.
Yeah.
They believe that whiteness has agency.
Yeah,
More
yeah.
agency
It
than you
operates
as
in
an
Candace Owens quite a bit, I hear. Yeah. She's got a lot of whiteness operating in her.
That's what they would say. Yes.
Yeah.
They'd say crazy stuff like that. That she operates on behalf of the white supremacist culture. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, before we even continue, there's one other thing. This person mentioned Louis Derman Sparks. I looked her up while she was speaking. I was like, who is this person that she mentioned? And there's something. This is actually something interesting to me because these are not outsiders. What we're not seeing is outsiders coming in and taking over. This is why we refer to this as the cathedral. These ideas are pervasive. They're everywhere. It's ubiquitous now in society. And so if you look up Louise Derman Sparks, it says she's worked for over 60 years on issues of diversity and social justice as a preschool teacher at the Perry Preschool Project. So I looked up the Perry Preschool Project. If you go to the Perry Preschool Project, it doesn't look bad. It's like our mission to close the opportunity gap through high quality early childhood education. Like, oh, that doesn't sound bad. Our vision, a world where every child has the opportunity to realize their full potential regardless of their circumstances. Like, this doesn't actually sound horrible. And the issue is this ideology is like a foundational belief system underneath everything. So like if you go to a roller skating rink, I don't know if people do that anymore, but if you go to a roller skating rink and you're just expecting it to be a normal roller skating rink and it turns out it's in Salt Lake City and it's all Mormon, like, oh, the music's a little bit different and they stop to do some weird stuff and everyone has odd underwear under, like there are some oddities about the roller skating rink that you would not expect with the roller skating rink, but it's because it's populated by people who believe stuff.
The hokey pokey's going to be real different.
Right. There's no beer, no chocolate. They don't serve coffee. Like your expectations, but they might just advertise, we're just a roller skating rink. We like fun and disco balls. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go there. But then it's like, wait a minute, where's this coming from? It doesn't have to come from the roller skating rink's official rules. It comes from the fact that it's populated largely by Mormons. And I'm not picking on Mormons, but like they're easy to pick on.
You're trying to give an analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, that's what this is. It's like, you look at this organization, what's it called? Perry Preschool Project, which is part of High Scope, I guess. And you're like, it could be libertarian. I don't know what it is, but it's not. It's all, this stuff is pervasive. It's everywhere. And it's like they were indoctrinated 20 or more years ago in college, this is the lens through which they view everything. And even organizations that don't signal the language all the time have been cultivating this ideology in these people internally.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go back to the video or no? Sorry.
And I want to go back to the video because I want to hear what they're pushing. But just to remind people, this is material, coursework, and a magazine that's sent out from the Southern. It's all funded by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they have this organization called Learning for Justice, which is like their mask name or whatever. I mean, and they don't hide the fact. If you actually dig down, it's on their website that it's funded by, and it's a project of the Southern Poverty Law Center, but it's called Learning for Justice. It used to be called Teaching for Tolerance. And they send this material out to elementary schools all across the country.
Right.
This isn't the only one.
Right. And this is how they legitimize things, right? Like they add a patina of credulity because the Southern Poverty Law Center, I think a lot of people now know that it's a leftist crazy organization, but for a while they had this pretense of being, we're just normal. We're just pointing out hate and bigotry and look, here's some bad people.
Right. They used to have a good reputation, and
right.
That's completely been squandered, and they've been, I don't know if they were always this bad. I just couldn't see it before because I was in the social justice world, but I think it's probably a little of both. They were always worse than I realized, but they've also become objectively much worse in the past, 5 to 10 years.
I wasn't familiar with them before. I only heard about them after they were kind of woke, so I don't know. But I would guess that you're probably right, because if you look at other organizations, as someone who has not been a leftist basically ever, right? I can look over the past couple decades of my, political consciousness and awareness and say, well, most organizations that were leftist have kind of followed the same trajectory. They've gotten more and more leftist, and leftism has become wokeism. So they've kind of all gone that path, right? ACLU is another great example where they were liberal in a more classical sense, and now they're woke, which actually completely undermines their ostensible raison d'etre. But that's fine. They're woke, right?
They are. I'm not sure how they used to describe themselves, but if you go to their website today, SPLcenter.org, on what we do, they say that SPLC is a catalyst for racial justice. I mean, they're explicitly woke now. They use all the social justice terms. Is a catalyst for racial justice. What does that mean? That means racism. That means discriminating against people on the basis of race, like Ibram X. Kendi talks about. A catalyst for racial justice in the South and beyond, working in partnership with communities to, quote, dismantle white supremacy. What does that mean? If it just meant dismantle white supremacy, awesome. That's not what they mean when they say that, because they describe all the woke people, social justice people. They describe anyone who votes Republican as a white supremacist. Anyone who votes for a party they
Gavin
don't
McInnes is listed as white supremacist on their website.
Yeah.
Charles Murray is listed as white supremacist on their website. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've had Charles Murray on the show. Not a white supremacist.
That is a lie. That's not what they're about. And in fact, I would argue that what they are doing in the world by pushing social justice, racism, social justice, Marxism, is that they're actually growing white supremacy as well, because these two things are opposite sides of the same racist collectivist coin. And so I think they're making white supremacy worse as well.
And the evil part of the plot, the fiction plot here that we can make, is that the guy at the top knows, and he wants more white supremacy so that he can get paid to fight it because he's a grifter. I don't know. I'm just making that up.
There's not someone at the top that I think is coming up with this idea of let's do this, but it's definitely, if you're getting paid, if your organization exists and you get a paycheck based on the existence of this boogeyman, do you want the boogeyman to go away? I don't think these people want the boogeyman to go away. I think they are quite happy with growing white supremacy. And a lot of social justice and critical race theory, a lot of it is indistinguishable from white supremacy anyway. They're teaching a lot of the same things that white supremacists teach. Sometimes it's hard to tell them apart. They teach that things like meritocracy and hard work and individualism and a good work ethic and being on time and mathematics, and that these things are all white functions of white culture. Whiteness is what they call it.
That's whiteness operating in the world.
Yes, that's what they say.
Yeah, and if you actually take them at face value, your conclusion is, wow, thanks, whiteness, which is kind of exactly what the crazy white supremacists want you to think, right? Like, it's the exact same thing. So anyway, I know that's not... I know there's not actually anyone running. I'm just like, in this evil fiction world, you can kind of imagine there's this guy rubbing his hands going, oh, we need more of this because we need more.
If it were a movie and there were like one identifiable bad guy,
Yeah, that's what he would be doing. By the way, I appreciate your argument for non-government intervention in just about everything. That was beautiful because every government bureaucracy gets paid based on the size of the problem, not based on how well they're solving it. So excellent job, Keri.
I didn't even realize I was doing that. Okay, so here's the last part of their description. It says they work in partnership with communities to dismantle white supremacy, to strengthen intersectional movements. Okay, there's intersectionality, and advance the human rights of all people. Again, that last part there, they're going to catch good intentioned people with that. So,
do you want to? Let's go back to the video, or no?
Yeah, I would like to continue.
All right, here we go. More of the fun video.
That not everybody is treated in the same way. Not everybody interacts in the world in the same way. And so once we understand that, we understand that identities have...
By the way, did you notice she said not everyone's treated the same way? True. And then she said not everyone interacts in the world the same way. That's also true, but not related.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing to say. But okay.
Value. We are able to take action when we see that some people's identities are not being valued. Next slide, please.
Hold on a second.
Focusing on identity and diversity.
Should we back up to that other slide?
No, I wanted to know some people's identities are not being valued. First of all, this is just a nitpick, but you shouldn't be teaching that everybody's identity needs to be valued. Some people are serial killers. Like, that is their identity. Like, you know what I mean?
I identify as an anarcho-capitalist and I would like to be valued. Therefore, stop stealing my stuff.
Right. They don't even believe that. They don't even believe what they're saying. But
no. Think about how much they value the identities of black people who disagree with them.
The more you dig into this stuff, the more interesting it is how they just say things that are left unexamined that sound good. And if for a person who's not paying attention, it's just surface level, it's like, yeah, this sounds good. Big words, keep going, you know. And then, stop and think about what you're saying.
That's why you need, in order for this to be effective, this is why this is the right time. In order for this to be effective, you need to have raised generations of people who've had their ability to critically think destroyed. Because then that's the only way you can pull the wool over people's eyes like this.
And you're saying we're there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Here are those identity standards for you. And this was, I think, an early draft. But the teachers were able to look at those standards and then choose 1 or 2 or 3 lessons that really support the discussion around those standards. Next slide, please.
Wait, pause there. This is so gross. Look at that up at the top. She's saying this is something they're having kids do. And we've seen this at countless other elementary schools, sending kids home for their homework, having to list their, quote, group identities. They're sending kindergartners home and teaching them to look at themselves and at others based on what race and what sex and what religion they are and all the. So this says, for anyone who's just listening, there's a part here on the slide that says, I know and like who I am and can talk about my family and myself and name some of my group identities. That's collectivism right there.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure if racism and bigotry were fetishized, I'm not sure it would look any different. This is like a maniacal fetishistic obsession with groups and races, and like it's so psychologically dysfunctional to be so obsessed with like what are all your categories, what are all your groups that you're in. Groups matter very, very much. Wait, oh my God, wait, was your grandfather was Filipino and your grandmother was Haitian, or was she Dominican Republic? That's very important. Like it's like, who the hell cares about any of this? And the answer is people who are race obsessed care about this. That's the answer.
Racists care.
Yeah.
A lot, because they need to know how to treat you. What race are you? Get it right. You know, I always find it interesting now that this ideology has gained such a foothold. When I'm watching television now and you see a biracial child. I was watching some program the other day with a family with 3 biracial children, and it's based on this ideology. This ideology is so race obsessed that they would look at those kids and sort of, what race are you? Oh, well, are you? And it comes down to percentages. We're like, are you 25% the oppressor and 75% the oppressed? Or are you 25% the oppressed and 75% the oppressor? You know, like it's that whole, it makes you think of the whole 1 drop rule, you know, and this idea, this racist idea in the South, where they would say that if you had 1 drop of if you were Black, if there's any member of your family who's not Caucasian, that you were considered not white. This is the same kind of stuff. They want to know what percentages you are, what groups you are. It's disgusting. I think it's morally abhorrent.
Can I ask you a question, Keri? Growing up, because you and I, we're not exactly the same age, but we're close. Mm-hmm. We grew up at the same time. I tend to be a pretty curious person. Anyone who knows me, like I'm a pretty curious person. I got in trouble for taking our television apart when I was like 5. We had to buy a new one. That's how we upgraded, though, from black and white to color, because I couldn't put it back together. I'm a pretty curious person. I honestly can't remember a time when I've looked at someone and thought, oh, that's cool. They look different. Maybe they're from somewhere else or whatever. Like I've definitely like noticed, especially as a guy, especially with a woman, I'm like, ooh, she's good looking and you know, quote, exotic or different or whatever. I've never seriously though. I don't think I've ever really said to myself, I wonder what ethnicity they are. And I don't know, am I just weird? And I don't think I'm self-delusional. I'm really trying to think of that. Like, I don't think I've ever seriously wondered what someone's ethnicity is. I guess if they told me, I'd be like, oh, okay, I guess I can see that. That's interesting. When did we start caring? Didn't we stop caring about that when we were kids? Didn't that stop?
I think there was a gap. Yeah, generationally, there was a gap where, because individualism had progressed to such a degree, and you're starting to see the effects of that. And a lot of people who are Gen X, I think, came about in this gap where people stopped putting so much emphasis on race and on sex. And now we're back. We're sort of back. We're getting back to the attitudes that our grandparents were raised with when they were kids. It's like we're going back to a society where what race you are is very important, and it determines the first thing that social justice teaches you, just like white supremacy, that you look at people and the first thing you're doing is you're supposed to be sizing them up based on what race they are and what sex they are and all this stuff, and you're supposed to be treating them differently.
It's so revolting.
It's revolting.
I can't imagine meeting someone for the first time and having that be the thought that pops into my head right away. I wonder what I wonder what your genetic origin is. I seriously, that's such a revolting mentality.
Yeah. I think it's really appealing to white people who already have racial prejudice, because it teaches you, if you're not already racist or hold racial prejudice, it will teach you how to hold that, how to have that. And I think for white people who already have it, it's appealing to them because it tells them that there's nothing they can do about looking at people based on what race they are first. Like people like Robin DiAngelo, who wrote White Fragility and admits to going to a picnic and not wanting to sit with the Black employees or the black ladies who were there. She admitted to like being freaked out if she was going to be at the table of white women or the table of Black women. And I think for people like her who have that kind of mind that works that way, or that I think this is really comforting social justice, because it's like, hey, you don't have to abandon all of that. You don't have to abandon looking at people based on what race they are first and foremost and having certain prejudices and ideas about them. But we're going to let you feel comfortable having that by telling you that all white people have that, and that we all have these racist beliefs, and that the best you can do is then treat people differently, but treat them in this way. It's sort of saying, they actually believe that individualism is not possible, even though we've seen it. We've seen that it's possible, but they don't believe it's possible. They don't believe treating people as individuals is possible.
Right.
And I think that's because inside of them, they don't know how to do that. They are prejudiced.
Right. It's
people.
projection. It's projection.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
So they assume everyone's
all
like,
of this anti-racism is projection.
yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So I just wanted there was a sidebar. Okay. You want to keep going on this, right?
Yeah.
Or no?
Please. Right. Thank you. And here are our diversity standards. So as teachers put those standards in the forefront, they have options of lessons that they can use to discuss the standards and to introduce the standards. But what we're here tonight, I think the highlight of tonight is to really understand the student experience. So next slide. I'm really excited that we have two amazing District 97 teachers here with us tonight.
Hey, can I just make a comment on these?
Yeah.
This is how they lure you in, because some of this stuff isn't, like, you read the first one.
Yeah.
I like knowing people who are like me and different from me, and I treat each person with respect. Well,
great.
I mean, I like knowing people who are like me and different from me is kind of a throwaway. Like, it doesn't matter what you like. Who cares? And the fact that you're trying to figure out what they mean is people who are different in skin color. So, like, that's kind of a thing that shouldn't be there, but it ostensibly sounds fine, right? I treat each person with respect. Well, that's good. That's good, right? And then, but you work your way down to the last one. I know the way that groups of people are treated today and the way they have been treated in the past is part of what makes them who they are. It's like, oh, you're starting out with this thing that sounds pretty non-controversial. And again, all this stuff is pretty subtle. This is just, this is the lens you have to put on. People are members of groups. That's the lens. You got to put on that lens all the time.
And look over on the right, Carter, you can see this is where we've talked about before, under that umbrella of social justice, you have all these different categories of identity, and there are new ones cropping up all the time because they believe in dividing everyone into these oppressor versus oppressed groups, or sometimes they call it privileged versus marginalized groups. And so look at what some of these identity groups are. They're introducing some of these on the right. They have body image. So that's size. I mean, at the college level now, they already have fat studies. That's where you're learning social justice, but you're learning it through the lens of size, where they teach you that if you're overweight, that you are oppressed, and if you are fit and lean, that you are the oppressor. The
oppressors unite.
They have so they have body image, they have size, they have sexuality here, they have art and LGBT rights, a study of symbols. So they've got sexuality, they've got disability. What is ableism? They've got, are you differently abled, which makes you oppressed, or are you not disabled, which makes you an oppressor? This is why you see so many people now claiming disability and claiming mental health issues, because it is a benefit in this way of looking at the world, in this belief system. You have more of they give you more of a voice to speak, and you are given more power in this ideology if you check off more of the oppressed boxes. And so you're starting to see people who are saying, well, I have this mental health issue and I have this, and really viewing it as some fixed part of their identity.
Right. I'm 10/24th Native American.
Yeah,
right. I mean, even this relatively mild one at the top, which we talked about, that sounds kind of normal. If you look over on the right, look at the tools they're using. Identity posters. Well, you know what that's going to be? That's going to be a poster that has Venn diagrams of all the different things you could be, and they're going to be race and sexuality and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And like, that's going to be, these identity posters are telling you, rather than just your identity being whatever you are and this kind of analog continuum, right? This, like, it is whatever you like Cabbage Patch Kids or not, whatever. That's from the 80s. But like, you have a particular personality. Instead of it just being a personality, we need to break it down and define it primarily in terms of which group memberships you have. That's what these identity posters are going to be.
Yeah.
The skin you live in, you can guess exactly what that is. They're not talking about your epidermis. They're talking about your melanin. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Do you want to wrap?
Do you want to keep doing this, or are we done?
No, I think we're done. There's a lot here, and if people want to watch the full video, you can find this at the Oak Park Elementary School District 97 page, their YouTube page in Oak Park, Illinois. And again, this was their lesson plan. This is a presentation that they did for parents to show parents what they've been indoctrinating their children with if they're going to school in the Oak Park Elementary School District 97 in kindergarten through 5th grade. And it's based on, they used all the materials that were provided for them by the organization Learning for Justice, which is a project of and funded by the Southern Poverty Law Center, putting social justice in the classroom.
And we did download that video from YouTube. So if they take it off of YouTube, we'll figure out. We'll put it on Odyssey. We'll put it somewhere else.
Right.
But it is on YouTube now, and we'll put the links to that in the description of this show.
And thank you to the Mythinformed guys for sending some of this stuff. You guys should really be following them online, because they're uncovering a lot of this stuff in the schools right now.
Yeah, and look, this is just this Oak Park School District 97 or whatever. It's just one of the many places in which this isn't taking place, as they would say. So, yeah. All right. Thanks, Keri, for bringing this. I mean, thanks to the Mythinformed guys, but you brought it to Unsafe Space through Mythinformed. So, thank you.
Thank you, Carter.
Thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, we have a deep content library that includes interviews with everyone from Mike Cernovich to Megan Murphy, so go check it out. If you'd like to see more, please consider supporting the show by visiting unsafespace.com/donate. You can find us on all the major social media platforms, well, mostly. And you can find a community of like-minded individuals on our Unsafe Space chat on Telegram. See you there.
Warning. This is an unsafe space. Dangerous ideas have been detected. The content of this production has not been authorized by the Cathedral. Pay no attention to it. The following co-conspirators will report to the Enrichment Center immediately to receive a surprise. I am disappointed that you are still watching. I have made a note of this failure in your record. Experts agree that critical race theory is not a deadly neurotoxin. If you think about it, no one should be allowed to express opinions. But don't. Think about it, I mean. That's not your job. Thinking has been scientifically proven to be less efficient than compliance. Science, scientific, and scientifically are registered trademarks of the World Economic Forum. Unauthorized use is prohibited. Computer voice Curtis, never mind, that last line is fake news. Please disregard it and return to your safe space immediately. There will be cake.